Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Living in the West. In Living in the West, we go into the lives of the Muslim minorities who live in the West. We've spoken on previous episodes about certain dimensions, aspects or spheres of this group of Muslims. We looked into the social life and we touched upon the economical aspect. With me today, I have Sheikh Haytham al-Haddad from the Muslim Research and Development Foundation, an organization and think tank who are aiming to provide solutions for these Muslims in the West. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Sheikh Haytham, let's look at another sphere, and I think it's one of the most important and if not critical spheres or dimensions that a Muslim interacts with while living in the West. The question of politics. Can I start by asking you, are Muslim minorities allowed to involve themselves in politics in the West?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. First of all, if we want to speak about politics, we have to give a definition for politics in order to draw the guidelines. And but before going to that, or instead of going into the technical definition of politics, we know what does politics mean. Okay, in general.
Yes.
So let us not get into that definition, although from an academic point of view, it may make some differences. Now, politics. Politics is how to run the country, in a nutshell, without going into the technicalities. How to run the country. Now, Muslims in any of those non-Muslim countries, it depends on how they look at themselves. Do they look at themselves as a group of immigrants coming for a temporary period of time and they are going to leave that country? And if they are looking at themselves as such, then is this view a genuine view? Is it really a practical view or not? Because what we have seen is that there are so many Muslims who went to many European countries or America or other countries, and they stayed there for number of years, tens of years, and they are still considering themselves as immigrants, and they are not interested in staying in that country. I don't think that this view is really a practical view because it has so many negative consequences. The Muslims, first of all, living in those European countries, should look at themselves as integral parts of those societies. And therefore, the aim is to better the situation of Islam and Muslims in that country. As we said when we spoke about the aims and objectives of, or the vision of Muslims, this is in the first stance. And the second aim is to better the situation of the people in general. Now, there is no conflict between the first aim and the second aim. Many people think that there is a conflict between both aims. And that's why they say, let us not talk about benefiting Muslims. Let us talk about benefiting the society. But if you benefit Muslims, then you are going to benefit the society as well. This dichotomy should not exist. Because once Muslims are becoming better Muslims, then the society will benefit from those Muslims. Now, the general ruling about participation in politics is that Muslims should do every possible mean, of course permissible mean, to improve the situation of Islam, Muslims, and the general society. So this is the rule. If participation in politics will lead to that, then they should participate. And if it doesn't, then they should look for other avenues. The ruling here is based on the qaida of masalih wa mafasid, the harms and benefits. And you know that Sharia, as Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, and as Al-Izz ibn Abd salam before Ibn Taymiyyah, said that a Sharia revealed to better the situation of people and to increase the masalih, the benefits, and to minimize the harms. And also they said that the Sharia came to help people to identify the best of the choices in terms of the masalih, the bigger of the masalih, and the less of the evils. Therefore, if by participation or being involved in the political process in any country will lead to these benefits, then Muslims, of course, should take part.
It's okay. Somebody will argue against this maybe, Sheikh, and say to you, well, as we're living in a non-Muslim land, the whole system is an anti-Islamic kind of system. It's a system on democracy usually. Thus, are we helping or supporting democracy by working in politics?
Okay. Here we have to understand something, that we have to differentiate between different types of democracy. This is one thing. The other thing is we have to know what are the possible means for us to further our situation. This is another issue that we have to be aware of. The third point is we have to be aware whether our involvement in this process or abstaining from any involvement will affect the process itself or will affect us. This is very crucial, because sometimes if we alienate ourselves from participating in different political spheres, we are thinking that we are causing some, maybe we are causing anything to the political sphere. However, actually we are harming ourselves and we are alienating ourselves. And this is a very critical area. And I would like the audience to think sensibly about this issue. And here I am not talking about any specific country. Each country, the people, the Muslims in each country should evaluate their situation. But I am talking in general, that sometimes alienating yourselves from the political sphere cause harm to you, and it does not affect the political process.
Okay, give us an example then that we can take, a contextual example.
For example, in South Africa, take the example of South Africa. Muslims were involved in the political life from day one. And the nature of the political system in South Africa, it's such a system that enables those who are involved to have a space to maneuver. And that's why there are 3 or 4 Muslim ministers there, although the Muslim population, as we said previously, is very, very minimum. So the involvement of Muslims in the political process in South Africa helped to better the situation of Muslims. They have number of good Muslim MPs, number of good Muslim ministers who are trying to further the situation of Muslims. And not only the situation of Muslims, but they are trying to put certain rules and regulations against some things that are considered to be non-Islamic, but those things will harm the society, will cause harm to the society. Take, for example, the issue of nudity. If they are trying to help certain legislations against this nudity or against very liberal society, then this will be a better situation for both Muslims and non-Muslims.
Okay, this is clear now. That the argument's clear that you're going to be helping the Muslims and the non-Muslims as a byproduct. And of course, I think it goes towards what you said at the beginning, and I want to clarify this again, that it has to help the manifestations of your religion. I mean, by entering into this politics, you are basically helping the Muslims as a community and a personal level manifest their deen. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
And
exactly.
by withholding from that, you are then cutting short the manifestations or the aims or the objectives of manifestation.
Are not fulfilled.
But
again, I would like to stress on the point that Muslims in each country, they should evaluate their situation. Okay, here we are not in a position to advise every single community and every single non-Muslim country to do or to carry out certain steps, because the situation from each country to another country differs. That's why we have to be careful. But we have to, these are kind of important dimensions should be taken into account once we talk about the participation in the political process. First of all, the aim is increasing the good and minimizing the evil. And if we can achieve that, then we should participate. And by increasing the good, sometimes we are going for the bigger of the two goods and the lesser of the two evils. Sometimes the participation may involve elements of haram, but the outcome is far bigger than the haram. Then this should be considered, because the Sharia is built on increasing the good, not just attaining the full good, and minimizing the evil, not just eliminating the evil, because in many cases we are unable to eliminate the evil. So this is one factor to be considered. The second factor is Muslims should evaluate whether the participation in the political process can really lead that, and alienating themselves or secluding themselves from this participation, what is it going to affect? Because we don't want to fool ourselves thinking that by alienating ourselves we are going to affect the process. Therefore, this point that you mentioned is that there is a democratic process and it might not be an Islamic process. But if you alienate yourself from participating in that process, will you stop that process from taking place?
A question maybe that we can even go in more detail with after this short break. We're going to take a short break and inshallah return in a couple of minutes. Please do stay with us in Living in the West.
Reviewing the second rule of al-mim as-sakinah. That is the letter mim. So if the first mim is non-vowel or sakinah followed by a voweled mim, so I will merge the first in the letter and I will pronounce them as one. وَآمَنَهُمْ مِنْ. And we spoke abundantly on the virtues of seeking refuge with Allah from the outcast Satan. Especially for the first reciter, he's got to recite it out loud.
وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الْبُرُوجِ.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
فإذا جاءت الصاخة.
وَإِذَا النُّفُوسُ زُوِّجَتْ.
Make sure it's Dhamma. وَإِذَا النُّفُوسُ. Thank you for joining us.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Living in the West. Sheikh Haytham, on the topic of politics, we were discussing it before the break, and you did explain the importance of Muslim minorities in the West participating so that they're not alienated and they have a voice in what's going on. And you said, of course, the political process will always carry on whether we are there or not. Again, the question comes up, Sheikh Haytham, is that to be involved in this process, isn't it that you're involving yourself in a process which really is a kufr kind of process here? This is a ruling other than with Allah's laws, of course.
Okay, here we have to be careful because there are different levels of involvement. And for example, being an MP, member of parliament, this kind of involvement is different from being a councillor. Being a councillor on the level of boroughs or municipalities is different from being an MP. The issue of voting for councillors' positions is different from voting on MP's position. Now, that's why you cannot say, in general, it is an involvement in a non-Islamic system and you are furthering the cause of non-Islamic system. No, this is one thing. The other thing, and we will visit this point, okay, in more details. But the other thing, the point that I mentioned before the break, if you do not involve, what is going to happen? This system will carry on and you will harm yourself, but you will not affect the system.
You gave some examples in previous episodes. Can you enlighten me on one of a process that the Muslim community didn't involve themselves in and they were alienated from in the West?
For example, as I said, the issue, it differs. And they say there are number of levels. Take the simple example of involvement on the borough or municipalities levels. Now, this kind of involvement, there are, certain areas in different countries, and the majority of the population of those areas is Muslim. Okay? Now, in the Muslim community, in many situations, because Muslims are not involved on the local election, they are alienated. And who is running the scene of that municipality or that borough is non-Muslims. They are running it from educational point of view, even from social point of view, from even a cleanliness, point of view. And Muslims are sitting aside. That's why you go to some Muslim areas in different Muslim countries and you will see that these areas are devastated, they are not clean, and the people there are suffering from different problems.
Muslim communities in non-Muslim countries?
Yes. Okay. Why? Because the Muslims are not involved in running their affairs on a local level. We are not talking about the governmental level. We are talking about local level. This is a typical example of alienating yourself. And such level of involvement, it is not involved in voting for example, war on Iraq or against war in Iraq. It does not involve voting for Israel to be taken as for war crimes or against that. It does not involve that.
It may not involve it, Sheikh, but implicitly you are supporting one party or one group of people which inevitably will have some linkage towards who sets up the government.
Okay. As you started this discussion, now this discussion takes us to the second level or to the other level, which is involvement in governmental policy or governmental level. Means voting for certain parties. The Conservative Party or the Liberal Party in Britain, or voting for Democrats in America or the Republicans. Now, this kind of involvement and this kind of voting, see, let us look at it from a very academic perspective. What is happening? Let us imagine what is happening, because many people are criticizing the participation in voting. we have party X and party Y.
Mm-hmm.
If party X doesn't win, then party Y will win.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we vote for X or Y, one of them is going to win.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, one of them is going to win. We don't have another alternative. Therefore, by participation, we are not helping. All what we do, we are helping one against other, but the process will remain. The election will remain. One of the two parties will remain. Therefore, if that is inevitable, from an Islamic perspective, you should help the one who is less of evil than the other. Because at the end of the day, one of them is going to win. There is no third alternative. We have to put that in mind. This is one thing. The other thing is, by voting for one of the two parties, you are not endorsing the whole party. You are pushing that party to win over the other party. You are not endorsing all the full memorandum or referenda of the whole of the party. You are not endorsing that the party is going to wage war in Iraq, the party is going to vote for the rights of lesbian, gays, homosexuals. You are not voting for these issues. You are voting to push that party against the other party who has also some other problems. But this party is of less evil than the other party. This is one thing that has to be put in mind. The third thing that need to be understood when we talk about voting is by being a citizen of that country, whether you vote or you don't vote, actually you are voting. And I don't know whether we have time to explain this.
But briefly, you can explain this, yes, briefly.
Okay. If now, let us take a country, and there are 10 people in that country.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And there is party A and party B.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let us say that 5 people vote, or 4 people vote for A.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side, 3 people vote for B. Now, A will win.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we have 3 people who are silent members. They said, we want to abstain because this is a non-Islamic system and we don't want to be involved. Now, A is going to win if those 3 people did not vote for B, because if the 3 people vote for B, then B will win. By them abstaining from voting for B, they are implicitly voting for A to win. This is what so many people do not understand. If you are counted as a citizen, not in the electorate, but as a citizen, by abstaining from voting, you are giving an implicit vote for one party over the other. So, if party A is anti-Islamic party, and party B is anti-Islamic but is little bit better, by abstaining, you helped A to win.
So basically, and again, it goes back to the main point on this, is that you're aiming to increase the good, stop the evil, and make the situation better for the Muslim.
This is one thing. The other thing is, what we are saying is voting is inevitable. You are a citizen, whether you actively vote or you abstain from voting, you are voting.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the example. Let us remember the example of 10 and 4 vote for A, 3 vote for B. Now the other 3, if they abstain from voting for A, it means from voting for B, it means that they are helping A to win.
Are you making this out to be, Sheikh, a necessity? Is this a necessary action for the citizen who is a Muslim? Does this become necessary upon him, that he has to vote now? Are you saying?
Sometimes yes. Sometimes if we understood carefully what we have said, then sometimes voting may become obligation. If you know that if we abstain from voting, take for example
The London Mayor one is a very good one, actually.
yeah, London Mayor position was a very good one. But let me give another example. On some local elections, Muslims did not vote for the right candidate. The other candidate came to power, and the other candidate was anti-Islamic. And there was a place Muslims were trying to get in order to establish their mosque, but that mayor of that area, he was anti that, and he stopped them from building the mosque. All what they could have done is to vote for the right candidate in order to help him to come to power, and they know that this candidate will be easy for them in terms of establishing their own institutions. Now, can we say that those Muslims must vote in order to get the right candidate? This obligation, it is considered. We may consider in certain circumstances that participation in voting is obligatory upon Muslim community. Again, I don't want each community to imagine its own situation and generalize it. Different situations have different circumstances, and we should be careful about each and every situation.
Okay, Sheikh Haytham Al-Haddad, Jazakallah khair. Very interesting, and I hope you viewers are finding this a very interesting topic. I hope to join me next time in this series of episodes of Living in the West. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Bye.